Every year, war veterans and their relatives come here to lay poppy wreaths to remember those who have served and died in wars. Amongst the many marching and laying poppies that Sunday were a small number of elderly British Asian men.
Perhaps they were noticed by the crowds who were watching, and maybe people might have been surprised to see them taking part at this event. What should surprise us is that there were so few.
In World War II, the Indian Army helped to defeat Germany and its allies. It was the biggest volunteer army in history. Is this the first time you've heard of them? We wanted to find out why we don't seem to know about the Indian Army and what they did in the war.
We wanted to find out why their contribution has been either forgotten or never properly recognised here. After all, Britain is where many of these men have since made their homes.
The first stop on our journey was the Imperial War Museum in London. This place is dedicated to telling the story of what happens in wartime. Surely here we would find plenty of information about the Indian Army and what they did.
We had a good look around the museum, keeping an eye out for anything to do with the Indian Army.
And what did we find? Not much. Clearly, we would have to look elsewhere. The search continued.
Next stop was another museum, a bit closer to home this time. It's not quite as grand as the Imperial War Museum in London, but the Fusilier Museum in Bury had much to add to our story.
The Indian armies contributed a massive amount of men and materials during the Second World War, and indeed during the First World War as well.
And these are some of the facts we found out.
2.5 million Indian men joined the Army, Navy and Air Force of India during the war. Nearly 1 million of these were Muslims.
Unlike the British, American and other Allied armies, all of these men were volunteers. They weren't made to join up, it was their choice.
By the end of the war, around 36,000 Indian soldiers had been killed in action. A similar number had been injured.
How were the Indian soldiers remembered in Britain?
I would say rather poorly, to be quite honest. It's part of our history which we've forgotten, perhaps conveniently so, because it makes the British Army look damn good if you give the impression that we won the war. No, we didn't. We won it in collaboration with, in this case, the Indian Army.
We came to Fulwood Barracks in Preston to talk to Brigadier Bill Aldridge. He is the most senior army officer in the northwest of England.
I do know that in the armed forces, so in the Royal Navy, the Army and the Air Force, there are some 500 serving Muslim soldiers.
Well, how do you think we should remember the Muslim soldiers who fought in World War II today?
With most of them coming from overseas, then it's a bit difficult to have a monument, say, here in Preston, to soldiers of whichever division of the Indian Army it was who fought in Burma. There isn't a great deal of connection. We don't, I think, generally single them out in the same way as we don't single out any other particular contingent.
I think he was more keen to answer the questions than I thought he'd be. Like, he gave more depth in the questions.
He classes it as they're all one, and like they're all soldiers.
But now we want to find Muslim veterans who fought in World War II, how they were treated in the army.
Our journey was nearly at its end. Finally, we got our chance to talk to 2 veterans in the flesh.
These remarkable gentlemen would be the key to our understanding. They were keen to tell us their stories, and we had lots of questions to ask them. What unit did you join and where did you do your training?
कौन सा यूनिट आपने ज्वाइन किया और कहां पर आपने ट्रेनिंग ली?
I was applied in the RIA as a Royal Indian Service Corps, which supplied the food to the unit, After 16 week training, I was sent to Middle East, from Middle East to Italy.
हजरत कौन सा यूनिट आपने ज्वाइन किया था और आपने ट्रेनिंग कहाँ पर ली थी?
हॉस्पिटल
हॉस्पिटल यूनिट।
हॉस्पिटल
हॉस्पिटल यूनिट यू ज्वाइन।
हॉस्पिटल 8 साल हॉस्पिटल में रहा हूँ रावलपिंडी।
Both had their training initially in the place called Rawalpindi, which is now in Pakistan, if you look at the map. But also they had their some training in the place called Pune, which is now in India.
Where did you serve and what were your duties?
They have to take the food to the foreign land before sunset, you know. Otherwise, if they, because if the soldiers don't get food, don't get ammunition, they cannot fight, they cannot, nothing, you know. Yeah. Very, very bad time as well, you know. God save us. Yeah.
Was your unit solely Muslim, or did you serve alongside Hindu, Sikh, or British soldiers?
Our officer was British officer, and the rest are Muslim from Pakistan.
हजरत आपके यूनिट में सिर्फ मुस्लिम थे या और मजहब के लोग भी थे?
दूसरे मजहब के सिख थे और हिंदू थे।
ठीक है।
जिस वक्त
in his unit there were mixed people belonging to Hindu faith and Sikh faith, and because he was serving mainly on that side of the India at that time. But when he was moved down to Pakistan, then predominantly then he had more Muslim people working with him under the kind of British high-ranking officers.
Were you able to pray 5 times a day?
No one can get time, you know, because we work hard very well all the time, you know. Italy in the winter there are 4 months day and night there rain is falling, you know.
नमाज पढ़ 5 वक्त की नमाज पढ़ सकते थे आप?
बिल्कुल पढ़ सकते थे।
ये तो पढ़ सकते हैं।
Mr. Hussain, because of the nature of his work, they used to pray 5 times a day. In fact, their commander was encouraging them to pray 5 times, and after the prayers they used to pray for the victory and in the favor of British government.
4 or 5 months over the for 9.
Yeah.
We don't get any time.
For the prayers. Yeah.
So how did you feel at the end of the war?
जब लड़ाई खत्म हो गई तो क्या महसूस किया आपने?
खत्म हो गई कि हम खुश हो गए कि हमने जिस काम के लिए आए हैं वो हमने काम कर लिया है। We are proud of that we win the war, you know. We are proud of that we win the war, put the German on the knee, you know. Yeah. Otherwise, German are going to take the Britain. But don't let him to take it. We'll give million of life. Yeah. To defend this country.
This was a point when what we had learnt so far started to make more sense. History, after all, isn't just about facts and dates. It's also about people and their experiences.
What did you feel about your contribution in the war?
क्या महसूस हुआ? वो हार्ड लाइफ थी, बहुत हार्ड लाइफ थी। वो हमें मालूम नहीं कब हमें मार जाएंगे, वो मारमट होती थी। टेरिबल टाइम, you know. Yeah. God save us. Yeah.
He said that it was very hard and it was hard life, and you never know from which direction which bullet would come and hit you.
Aeroplane come radar, you know. You drop bombs on the other side, this side. God save us, you know.
These men are elderly, and the events they talk about happened 70 years ago. As time goes by, there will be fewer and fewer of them to tell their stories. We were privileged to meet them and to hear what they had to tell us. Perhaps we've made a start here. Perhaps we've helped to make some people, made you, think about the parts of the story that are missing.